Entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals who seek excellence, bringing the business classroom to you. It's the Business Builders Show. Here's Marty Wolf.
We still got a long way to go. Yes, we all got a long way to go.
Welcome to the Business Builders Show with Marty Wolf, and today with our guest host, J. Kelly Hoey. Along with Kelly and our executive producer, DC Taylor, we will be your guides on this learning journey. To learn more about Kelly, check out her website at jkellyhoey.co. That's jkellyhoey.co. Okay, Kelly, let's get the conversation going.
Thanks, Marty. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome to the Business Builders Show today Ian Harkin, CEO of Lottie Dolls and a champion for kids. Now, for those who aren't familiar, Lottie Dolls are a diverse range of premium quality small dolls. Since launching, Lottie has been, a challenger in the toy industry, challenging norms with respect to body image, gender, stereotypes, diversity in ability, and ethnicity. Lottie has been a big promoter for STEM subjects, in particular to girls who are underrepresented in the STEM field. A partnership. I can go on with so many things about Lottie Dolls. I'm a bit of a fan, if you can't already tell from my enthusiasm in my voice. A partnership with the European Space Agency saw the company send their Stargazer doll to the International Space Station for 264 days alongside British astronaut Tim Peake. To date, Lottie Dolls have won 35 international toy awards and are on sale in over 30 countries worldwide. Welcome to the Business Builders Show, Ian.
Thank you very much, Kelly, for having me on.
So let's go back. Lottie has accomplished a lot, but let's go back to 2010, 2012, which is not that long ago. That was before Lottie went into space. She was just an idea hatched around a kitchen table in London. You self-funded the company initially. You sold your home. You set up shop in Donegal, Ireland. Where at the time, I noted from some stuff on your website, unemployment was 24%. What on earth were you thinking?
I guess, when we started out the business at the very beginning, we did about 18 months worth of research when I was living in London. I started with the business with a friend of mine called Lucy, and we built that business up based on the insights that we discovered. Initially, one of the first pieces of research that we came across was an article in the Times, as in the London Times newspaper. It was by a lady by the name of Dr. Margaret Ashwell. And Dr. Ashwell, she was head of the British Nutrition Foundation, and she had done some research which she was able to discover that from the dolls that you were playing with, kids were developing body image issues later in life. And so we found this hugely interesting, and we contacted Dr. Ashwell. She put us in touch with a number of child development experts, from body image experts to play experts. We did our own focus groups with moms and kids. We really listened to kids more so than what anybody else was telling us. Kids wanted portability. They wanted attention to detail. They wanted dolls that reflected themselves. And one of the greatest things that we actually did through that research was we discovered that most of the other, some of it's really obvious when you're doing it, but we discovered that pretty much all of the other dolls in the market were based on adults, and we decided to base our doll on a child. So we were immediately able to get around a lot of the body image issues, the sexualization issues that parents were having concerns about. And we launched our doll based on a 9-year-old child. We sculpted her actually in the average proportions of a 9-year-old child. So, those body image issues, we were able to solve a lot of them. In fact, we we went to a guy by the name of Professor David McCarthy, who's from the London Metropolitan University, and he gave us the average proportions. So when we went back to him a year later about the average proportions of a boy doll, he said they're virtually identical at 9 years of age. So we use the same doll body for both our boy and girl doll, which can help, in terms of play patterns and identity and things like that. We, when we started it in London, because we went against the grain of instead of, developing an adult doll, we based ours on a child. Retailers, they were always saying to us, look, you need to develop it pretty much like what the market says. So it needs to be 12.5-inch. It needs to be blister packed. It needs to be full of plastic and, shout outs of what's inside the packaging. We went completely the other direction, and we decided to make it cute and portable and reusable. And when we eventually launched it on the market, we got a lot of kickback from retailers because we didn't conform to what they told us to do. So we decided that we would focus online initially, and we picked up distributors right around the world who bought into the values of it. And distributors at that point in time, they were very much focused on the independent retailers. And again, you could not get bigger advocates than your local toy store. Because we had a story to tell, they were more than willing to help us on our journey in telling the research that we put into our doll, what made our product different. Whereas if you go into big box retailers, you're sitting against, established brands that have been there for 60, 70 years, and it's very difficult to compete. But you competed by messing up their shelf space with a different size box and different size doll. Exactly. Yeah, and at a higher price point as well. Like we really take a lot of pride in the attention to detail that we provide in our dolls. So we do things like inner lining, stitching. Because we do all of this, we don't actually shout it out on the packaging. If you look at any other doll in the market, they will shout out the features of what their dolls are. We don't do that. We like kids to buy a product and afterwards discover, things that they didn't know about the doll. And that's really how we address a lot of the diversity issues as well. We never say on the doll box that, that it's a doll with a hearing aid or a doll that has ADHD or autism. We provide content inside the box that helps kids discover those differences. I would say that natural curiosity and I would say the natural curiosity in kids and the desire to discover something and that ability to get excited about it and share it with someone. You can almost hear it. I'm so glad you talked about the research. But I have to go back to this. Why did you relocate to Donegal? Yeah, so I guess I'd been through a pretty difficult period in my life. I was engaged to a girl in London who sadly passed away from cancer, and I had been working in a different company. I sold up my shares there, and one of the, I suppose, from as this is a business show, I guess when you start a business, you have a couple of options. One is you can go out, get investors, and what that does the moment you do take that step is you lose a lot of the control in your business, both in direction and the speed of which you have to get your return. In building a brand, you need to take time to do it. We already talked about the 18 months worth of research that went into it. And, with each product development iteration that you go through, that, workflow takes time, and you're constantly building on the fabric of what your brand is all about. So if you, dilute your equity very early in that stage, you're constantly being asked for a return on investment, and that pressure, just adds pressure to it. So I guess I got to the stage where I could have went out and looked for investment, and I suppose in London that was one way of doing it. I am from the northwest of Ireland, which was severely affected post the last financial crash, and unemployment rates are extremely high. For me personally, it was good to be able to demonstrate that you can operate a business on a global level, I guess, from quite a remote location, as long as you have good broadband and you're able to locate the right talent, then it's not an issue. We, like every other toy company in the world, we still have to go to trade shows. Most of our work is done at the international trade shows, and everybody has to travel to them anyhow. So where you actually operate from doesn't really matter. We have, warehouses in remote locations around the world to be able to fulfill on a timely basis, just like every one of our competitors. So all of the work that we do here is IP creation, and then all the marketing and sales and development work that we do with our products.
And obviously you've grown quite a team over the past few years. You've touched on it in our conversation so far, and some of the challenges from retailers and expectations, and I want to say sort of a narrow viewpoint the market has on dolls and what their size needs to be. But what are some of the other challenges of being a mission-focused company?
Yeah, I suppose getting your product to market is the biggest challenge. One of the beauties, I suppose, of social media is that you can reach your audience a lot quicker and more direct than you ever have been in the past. Historically, diversity has been a real challenge for retailers because they're not able to communicate it sometimes in stores very well. Whereas online, you can tell that story an awful lot better. You can communicate it to people, through video or just website or, blog content or social media content. And the engagement as well that you get when you do that is very powerful. What we want to do with a lot of our products is, even though we are developing products for, minorities, we want, the majority to be buying our products as well, because if you give a child a doll that, talks about autism and educates kids about autism, they're more likely to be able to develop empathy through play, so that they themselves, are able to identify other kids that may have those differences, and, it normalizes it. If you're able to do it at a very young age, the chances of kids getting bullied, later in life are significantly less.
No, that's amazing.
Kelly, Kelly, can I jump in?
Yeah, jump in. Jump in there, Marty. You're being too quiet.
As always, I'm listening. Mission-focused company. So I've read the background, and I guess, when did you decide that? Was that the strategy? Was that in your heart right from the very beginning, or did you decide that along the way? Talk to me about that.
I suppose we would have started out, and we were very much focused at the very beginning on body image and empowering girls. A lot of it actually happened from people that we've met along the way. And we pride ourselves on customer service. So by doing so, we communicate quite a lot with different people who have maybe not been served by other brands or other toy companies. So we engage a lot with people, simply by people emailing us. And then we do our research. So we have a database of about 60,000 people that we communicate with several times a year. We also do our own focus groups where we do a more formal, strategic sort of research. So yeah, I guess it's all research. It fits with, our own personal values. I think the brand when you're building it, especially as a someone who owns the business as opposed to a big corporate, they tend to, the values of the brand tend to reflect your own values and your own interests. So, it's people, really.
So you did the research, Ian. Right, you did the research. You have an art background, if I understand correctly, in addition to a financial background. Yeah,
I have an art interest and passion. I guess the whole way through school, it was my favorite subject, but I guess I chose a career in finance to be able to pay bills.
Realistic, okay. Yeah. My question, I guess, Ian, is how much did having that art background help you at the very beginning? Did you actually do a lot of the design? Did you have, in addition to getting feedback from others? I'm interested in that.
Yes, I would have. I would have been involved quite heavily in it. One of the first things we did when we started Lottie was we employed a brand consultant in London, and it was quite a large amount of money to be paying out on one of our first bills, I suppose. But what it gave was structure, and it gave us. It made us think about things like, what is your tone of voice? Who's your brand? How do you talk to both parents, the media, to kids? So we built a lot of that structure and those values. What did we want our brand to be from day one? And then whilst it evolves, we stay true to a lot of what we decided at the very, very beginning, and it made it a lot easier as well.
Yep. And you couldn't have done that if you leased your soul and everything else to an investment capital group. Oh, did I say that out loud?
I'm glad you did.
Do we need to bleep that out? Or I'm glad you took the track that you took. So back to you, Kelly.
Oh, that's great, Marty. Well, so much of this, knowing Ian and knowing some of these stories, I want to go back to the Stargazer Lottie, the doll you put into space. And I know a 6-year-old girl in Canada was very influential in coming up with the design of Stargazer. But I want to know the other half of this is how did you forge a partnership with the European Space Agency, and how did that come about that you could get the first doll into space?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, little Abigail, her mom's actually, she owns a creche in Canada, and she had been looking for a doll that pretty much ticked all the boxes of what she was looking for. She hadn't found it before. She literally wrote us a letter to say thank you when we launched, and she bought the entire range for a creche. And we then, through a conversation, we developed the product with her daughter, Abigail. And as we were going through the development phase, we thought, right, okay, we want to teach girls in particular about STEM subjects because we're aware that girls are not represented enough in STEM fields. And we thought, right, okay, because we're focusing on astronomy, let's contact the European Space Agency. And we decided at the very beginning, we were developing content together. We did a couple of different competitions on essay competitions and art competitions. And then it was a really cheeky sort of backhanded thing, I suppose. We just said, I guess it's one of those ones, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I just said, what would be the chances of sending our doll to space? And they sort of looked at me and, is he being serious? And I was going, yeah. It'd be great if we could get her sent up to space because, we could teach girls about what's happening on the space station. And immediately I thought they would just discount it. And they said, right, okay, we'll get back to you. And 6 months later, just out of the blue, they call me up and say, we got to keep this secret, but in 6 months' time, your doll's going to go up to space.
Wow.
So we had to keep it secret for 6 months.
Wow.
Okay, that would be another conversation. How do you keep that secret for 6 months? And I will make sure that in the show notes, not only do we have links to your website, Ian, but we include the video that was done around Stargazer Lottie, because that like Abigail's face when she sees, her doll that she helped design with you, like going off to space. I mean, it's worth everything. That just her excitement is something else. What a gift. What a gift.
Yeah, very cute girl.
I want to go to, you've mentioned also earlier in this conversation, you've hinted at some of the other dolls. So you've got in 2017, you launched Mia the Wildlife Photographer, the first mass-produced doll with a hearing aid and implant. In 2018, you launched Loyal Companion, based on a boy from Northern Ireland who has autism. And this year on World Dwarfism Awareness Day, you launched a partnership with Sinead Burke, our mutual friend, and you launched the Sinead doll. How and when do you decide to create a unique doll, and what's been the market reaction to these dolls?
Yeah, so I suppose I'll go through each of them there. The wildlife photographer doll that we did, the Mia doll, she was a partnership that we did with an organization called Toy Like Me, and they specifically asked us about a doll with a cochlear implant. And they actually challenged the entire toy industry to be more inclusive about developing products for kids with different abilities. And they've been communicating for a number of years with the larger companies, and they weren't getting anywhere. So whenever we reached out to them, we were the first company to actually develop a doll with them. And the impact for it was huge. I mean, the feedback that we get from kids who have the condition themselves is phenomenal, because it's the first time they can ever relate directly to a doll that looks like them. The power of that is huge. But as I said earlier as well, for us, it's not just about selling dolls to kids from minorities. It's selling it to the general public and letting them discover about the challenges that some of those people face. The Hayden doll we did was it was quite a nice tie back to the first doll that we did with the Stargazer doll, in that he spoke for the first time when he watched the rocket take off to space. So he later discovered that he was autistic and had ADHD. And then the first words that he spoke were the countdown. So locally, I suppose there's always a really good, hook to push out to press and the media. In some of the dolls, for us, it's really just about providing a doll or a toy that kids can relate to. In Sinead's case, Sinead approached me a number of years ago, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I think, at the Inspire Fest festival in Dublin, and she asked me straight up, would I like to, or actually she probably demanded it of me. knowing
Sinead, I'd go with the latter. I'd go with she probably.
Yeah. So it was a huge honor to do it with her. I this time last year, I spoke at Sinead's annual convention, where all of the little people of Ireland meet each year and they celebrate. They have a celebration event, and it's quite informative as well. And I'd spent 3 days with her community, and you can see when you meet a single person, whether this is a single person with autism or a single person with hearing implants, but when you see multiple people at the same time, you really get immersed in some of the challenges that they face. And a lot of it is actually just down to design, which is what Sinead is most passionate about. It's about inclusion in design. And when you see multiple people, hundreds of people with that same disability in the one location, it really emphasizes, that something has to be done now, not in the future. So yeah, it powers you to take action straight away.
Kelly, Kelly, and Ian,
go ahead.
if I can jump in. So, dear Business Builder Show audience, replay the last few minutes so that you really understand what a mission-focused company is. What a real mission-focused company is. There are people throwing around that phrase a lot worldwide, and I'm sure some of them are true to their word, but listen to the last few minutes of what Ian just said to us, and you'll really understand what those words mean.
It's amazing. And also, I think, Ian, you're just such an example of, where in, a competitive market you can carve. And it's not to say that it's easy or without its ups and downs and headaches, but you can carve and create your own path and really stand out. And hopefully for others to emulate. Another area where, for me, you as a business owner stand out is you being a champion of other local businesses. And we've talked about Donegal a little bit with the economic challenges that region had when you first moved, Lottie, there. But share a little how you've been working with other local businesses, in particular Donegal designers, to highlight the vibrancy of the business region.
Yeah, so this is a little project that I conceived, I suppose, at the beginning of this year. And my wife is actually from Colombia, so we every weekend we've got 2 kids and we pile them into the car and we go to a location in our county that we've never been to before. So every weekend we're being exposed to both the beauty of where we're from. Donegal's stunning, so it is. It's a must. It's a must go to location. If you can tolerate the rain a little bit, but it's a stunningly beautiful landscape, and it's got a really rich tradition in craft making, both in physical products and garments. And what I wanted to do was, I guess it's a little bit from the sustainability side on our own products, where we're encouraging people to make their own outfits and buildings and everything for Lottie. So I contacted all of the fashion designers and fabric makers in Donegal, and pretty much every one of them got back and said they'd like to get on board with the little campaign. So we sent them out a couple of dolls, and they all made outfits, one-off outfits for them. And I jumped in the car for a couple of days and went out and visited their businesses and showcased the dolls that they made and showcased their businesses themselves. But it was fascinating for me going in. Some of these businesses, they're over 100 years old, making fabric, and the history that they have as well. I mean, it's real high-end fashion down to, local handmade one-off pieces. But the pride that they take in their work and in their workforce and where they're from is phenomenal. I find it really, really motivating. And, I suppose from that point as well, we're sharing different, routes to market or marketing techniques or whatever you can share with another business to help them grow as well.
That's. I have to say, having watched the campaign, I wanted Lottie's wardrobe from that little excursion around the region. I'm a little envious of her outfits.
So one of the locations that we're at was Studio Donegal, and they're Sarah Jessica Parker actually has a holiday home very close to it, and she's a big fan of theirs as well. So there's some people with really high profiles and some people that were just starting out, and it was great to be able to do it.
We'll see more for those listeners of the Business Builder Show to emulate, follow Ian's example in terms of the way you build a company and the way you can market a company. Ian, before we wrap this up, I got another question for you. When are you bringing back Pirate Lottie? What's next? Give us a hint.
There's Pirate Queen Lottie is based on this woman from Mayo, and she is called Grace O'Malley. And she was a pirate who operated off the west coast of Mayo and commanded over 600 men at one stage. And by rare, like we were constantly, this is one of the first dolls that we did was a pirate. So we wanted to show a female in an empowering role. Okay, it's probably a little bit too empowering being a pirate, but she was a story that had almost been lost to history, and it was rediscovered by a lady called Anne Chambers, who wrote a book about it. But randomly, there's another person by the exact same name called Grace O'Malley, who she's a young girl from Mayo, and we're doing a project with her next year as well. Unfortunately, she has a medical condition that means she goes to hospital quite a lot. So we are doing a doll with her and her friend Aveen. Aveen actually developed a prototype using like a teddy bear type thing, and it's teaches kids about when they go to hospital about all of the different procedures, the main procedures, I suppose, getting your temperature taken, to maybe getting an IV put in, and trying to get rid of or remove a lot of the fears that kids may have from spending a night or more in hospital. So that girl is also Grace. But we will be doing the Grace pirate outfit as an outfit pack in the future as well.
Awesome. Ian, it's always good to talk to you, and look forward to seeing you soon, whether it is one of our mutual friends gatherings or Dublin for, I would say, Future Human, the conference formerly known as Inspire Fest. And thank you. I will include links for our listeners. I will include links in the show notes to all these things that we've talked about. And Ian, thank you for being a guest on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Business Builders Show. To learn more about me, and I'm Marty Wolff, go to MartyWolfBusinessSolutions.com. That's MartyWolfBusinessSolutions.com. To learn more about Kelly Hoey, go to her website, which is jkellyhoey.co. That's jkellyhoey.co. And of course, you can find Kelly and Marty on LinkedIn and Twitter. A reminder, you can find all our Business Builders shows on iTunes, Spotify, and on your favorite podcast app.
Bringing the business classroom to you. It's the Business Builders Show with Marty Wolff.